All right, so picking up where we left off, we finished talking about phase 1 concept mapping in project 3, which was going to be your first assignment worth 15%. The second phase, the second assignment, is called drawing an iterative mark design. And so if we take a look at that, this is the assignment, and you'll see here that it is worth 40% of your entire project 3 grade, right? So it's pretty significant. And project 3 is worth a significant portion of your entire semester grade. So take that pretty seriously. All right, so if you want to start here, you'll see that you're going to base this off of the research you did in phase 1, where you did the mind mapping, right? And you're going to go from translating like a literal object into an abstract symbol from hand sketches to digital comps, and selecting a single symbol for refinement and creating a final single mark solution to convey your chosen concept. So let's take a really quick look really here at some example case studies. Okay, so if you open up that file, this will show you some different implied suggested meanings with graphic marks. So you're going to start by using only basic graphic forms, like circles, squares, polygons, things like that, triangles, lines, and so on. Okay, you can look at this as a sort of a key of different ideas, index of ideas that you can start with. But these are some case studies. So this is one that you probably are very familiar with. This is Chase Manhattan Bank. It's an identity, and this is something like where you see the shape is used over and over again. The logo reinforces trust, and then repetitive symbol establishes a sense of familiarity, makes us feel comfortable, right? Trusting with money. It almost feels like handshaking too. So, but you can see that this has literally no visual, money reference. There are no dollar symbols. There's no other kind of money symbol. So it's really kind of hard in some ways to think about some of these really abstract concepts as visual marks, but that's exactly what you have to do as a graphic designer. And so that's why we are not doing a specific logo for a specific company. We're starting off with these sort of general broad ideas so that you can learn how to think, visually and graphically representatively for things that maybe don't have concrete visual symbols. Right, so that's one really well-known one. These are some others that are some examples put together. These are actually not put together by me, but it gives you some example idea, right? So protect, this is sort of like the umbrella with rain, I guess, if you want to look at it like that, or anything coming down, but something is being shielded. Security, you see that the sort of like these interlocking circles, right? Protect, right? You start to get the idea of that as being something that could be protection, defense. All right, these are just some case studies. All right, and so those are just some general ideas, but here's some specific student examples. If you want to see some of those, take a look. Okay, so if you look at this, you're going to see that we have, first off, nature, ocean. Okay, so it started with nature and the word ended up being ocean. And actually, this particular student, if you remember back before, it ended up being sandcastle, and then she went back and did some revisions and decided to go with ocean, but with the connotation of thinking about salt, sand, and so on, right? And so she did a bunch of hand sketches, right, and then ended up translating those into some digital sketches. Now, you weren't required to do this many digital sketches that are different from each other, but she really wanted to go into a lot of exploration, so she put all of her process here, and then these are some of the ones that she started to narrow it down to, right? Okay, and this is the documentation that you would produce based off of the template that's provided to you in the second assignment discussion board. All right, here's one that was for commerce, free trade. All right, and you can see here on the left are all of these different hand sketches that really had to do with systems, and he thought about the symbiotic nature of a lot of like biological processes, for instance, and so that's where a lot of these organic shapes came into play. And then on the left, or excuse me, on the right, you see these digital sketches that he did using Illustrator, and you know, just creating this, and then he refined it down uh, through lots of process of making things more and more simplified, and he ended up kind of with this lower right icon. Okay, and then you see here that he has the mark at the top, and then he has an emblem which is more contained. It's a more contained version, right? Okay, and then this is entertainment masks. Okay, this student started doing, you know, the sort of standard comedy drama masks, which, you know, really are very overdone. And I was really concerned about that. And I said, hey, you know, this is something that you see represented a lot, and a lot of times it's not done well. And so she had to really, really push herself to make hers look really different, unique, and original. And I think she did a great job, right? And so you end up on the right hand, these are the digital sketches that she ended up getting out of her hand sketches, so that she had a starting place, and then she refined those down. And this is what she ended up with. So the top one where it's just black, that is the mark, and then the inverse is where it's an emblem so that it's contained with uh, a, a bounding box, right, of some sort. Okay, and so that's how she did hers. All right, another sporting adventure ended up with extreme sports, if you remember the mind mapping from that. And so on the left are some sketches that she had done, and then on the right are her digital illustrations, her digital sketches. And then this is the mark that she ended up working with. And we don't see the emblem here for some reason, but it's basically encapsulated. Okay. And next one is nature, and it ended up in the word seed. Okay, and so left hand sketches, right hand are his digital sketches using Illustrator. And he ended up sticking with the acorn shape, even though all of them were actually very good. And you can see the one on the left is the regular mark, and then the ones on the right, both the top and bottom, are the emblemized mark. And an emblem is basically something that is contained, okay, so that it has something that's contained. And it's not necessarily just putting a box or a circle around it. So that's something to think about as you look at some of these examples. You're going to see a lot of that, but you can also think of it in a different way too. It doesn't have to just have, like I said, a shape encapsulating it. There can be some other ways of containing your mark. Okay, and then so one is just a reversal or a knockout. All right, a nature, and then the word live. Or you could translate as live, whichever one. All right, so on the left are his sketches, and he actually used a Wacom tablet, and that's why they look sort of digitized on the left, but he did do them by hand. All right, so on the left are the Wacom tablet sketches, and on the right are the Illustrator refined digital sketches that he used, you know, just traditional vectors with. Okay, and for some reason we don't see the one that's selected. It's because I think this particular student, even after turning this in, he decided to keep on going, and he ended up coming up with something that he used that's not on this page. But this is a good example of the drawing phase. Okay, and then this one, you can see the digital sketches over on the left. For some reason I don't have her hand sketches, but I know she did them. And on the right, we see the final mark and then the emblemized mark. And one of the things that you're going to realize and notice is that many of these marks are a little bit different in their final phases than they were in all of these other phases. So like you'll see that, you know, it might have started with a certain set of words, and then in the concept mapping phase, and then it goes to the drawing phase, and then it goes through this iterative process, and then, you know, they land on a final mark and an emblemized mark. One of the things you'll realize is that, you know, even in the next phase, whenever we get to that video, some of these that you see consistently throughout these videos, might look a little bit different, and that's because they just kept on working on them, and through the refinement process they kept making them better and better and better, right? And so this student, for instance, if you were to look at this one that I'm sort of circling right now with my mouse, that one was originally the one that she thought she was going to use as the final, but then realized that the proportions were odd because they, it's taller than it was wide, and it started looking more gem-like as opposed to focusing on the nature of the scientific stuff. And so she ended up going in and changing it, right? And so you'll see that stuff sort of gets changed a little bit throughout. I just want to make that point so that you're not confused later. Okay, so coming back to this page where the assignment outline is, this next section, after you look at the examples, it has like the first step, translating the images to sketches. And so you're going to do some simple sketches by hand. I do want you to do them with your hand. Even if you have a Wacom tablet or something, that's okay, but I don't want you to immediately just start trying to make shapes in Illustrator, right? I want you to actually do some drawing. And you're going to identify the ways that you can abstract the form enough to simplify it into an immediately readable graphic mark or icon while still retaining, the meaning of the object you're trying to convey. And so we can also look at some, let's look at a case study here in abstracting literal forms. Okay, so you can see in this example, this degrees of abstraction thing, right? We've got something that might look like a real umbrella, and this might be similar to your sketch. Your sketch might be more abstracted, I don't know, it depends. But let's just say you start with something that looks like a real umbrella. You might want to think about how you can get from point A to like point Z with your abstraction so that you see this second step, it's even more abstracted, right? So that it becomes just a flat graphic with, just the black raindrops and the umbrella, right? You can still tell that that's an umbrella, and then maybe, think about abstracting it even more in step 3, where you remove the stem, and then you've got these other drops that become rain, and then maybe you continue working on it, and then you end up with something like in the fourth example for this graphic mark where, this icon is it's creating this visual shield around something with these vertical drops, and you can see how it gets from this form of abstraction to that, right? And so that's one example. Okay, so back to this page. All right, so you're going to do those sketches, and you're going to make some digital sketches in step 2, where you're translating those sketches to digital line art. And you're going to make at least 10 simple sketches on paper, all right? At least 10. And then you're going to take one of those 10 that you think is the best. You can explore more than one, but you're only required to take at least one of those 10 that you think would be the best way to go, and or have be the best launch point. And you can start drawing you know that particular one, but you're going to have to do at least 4 iterations of that particular one sketch that you've chosen from your hand sketches. So when I say that, just to reiterate, you'll take like your 10 hand sketches, you're going to find the one that you think that is a good launch board to start with as a digital drawing, and then you're going to draw that digitally in Illustrator using shape tools, pen tools, Pathfinder, live paint tools, and so on. And you're going to create at least 4 digital iterations of that single mark in Illustrator. All right, this is going to be your phase 2 digital drawing, and it should only be black and white. All right, no color or midtones are allowed, so no gray. Okay, and they should have easily recognizable, or excuse me, they should not have. I misspoke. They should not have easily recognizable letters in them. So absolutely no full words. We are not using text in this, okay? That's not the point of this. You're not using any kind of words. All right. You are allowed to convert letter forms into shapes if you want to modify and manipulate them, but you're not supposed to leave the letters unaltered and they cannot be immediately read as letters. All right, so that's a very big part of making your digital sketches. Okay, so number 3, the considerations you need to make whenever you're doing your mark. Um, okay, first of all, it's only limited to black and white, all right, at first, but for this assignment, just black and white. And remember that logos should always have a black and white option, and that they need to be able to scale without losing any kind of clarity or meaning. So they can get really big or really, really small without losing too much clarity. All right, and so later we'll talk about color in a different assignment phase, but right now it's just black and white. Okay, and so then this next part, confining the mark or making it an emblem, emblematizing it, you need to, think about how to do something that requires a boundary, right? So some marks are going to require a boundary. Like for instance, if you were to make an app icon or something like that, right? Think how it would look like on an iPhone or an Android or something like that. Also, like on a polo shirt or a baseball cap insignia, things like that, letterhead and so on. And let's take a really quick look at a case study here. If you click this, it'll take you over here, okay? And so these are just some examples, right? And you can get an idea over in this top right legend kind of some ideas. These are not prescriptive, you can do other things, but these are just some general ideas that you could use to work on emblematizing. And so that last one, the umbrella, you can see how it can be captured, on this right hand version of it, right, in a really different kind of way. And that becomes something that's really usable as a clickable icon, or it works really well in a very contained place. And it doesn't mean that you couldn't use both versions of the mark, but it's the version that you would use if you needed to have boundaries, right? And then this next one, you can see the difference in the way that these two look. And then on the far right, again, this is the one that was supposed to be for protection. You can see that the one that doesn't have the big black box with it, it's nice as a mark, but also the one that is emblematized, it feels like it is more weighted, okay? And so you're also going to make an emblematized version of that. All right, and you can always refer back to the other examples that I showed you up here of the former student examples right here, if you want to see like what their drawings looked like, and then how they got from their final mark and then to their emblematized mark. Okay, and then so documenting and uploading. So you're going to use this phase 2 documentation template, just like similarly to what you did in the first assignment, but this one's different, and it's got places where you just plop your stuff in the right place. And you're going to save a copy as a PDF and upload it to this discussion when you're done for a grade. Okay. All right, so I'm going to end this demo here, or this video here, but then for the third assignment, there will be another explanation.